So I teach at Columbia College, which is the largest performing arts school in the country. I teach actors and actresses, and I teach them speech class. Do you remember when you had to take speech class in high school or college? You know, everybody gets a little whacked out when they have to take speech. Now these are actors and actresses, extroverts, people that want to be on Broadway, performers. But when they have to take speech, they get nervous. So as good undergraduate students, of course, they're required to take this class to graduate. So as good undergraduate students, they wait until second semester of senior year to sign up for my class. They have to take it to graduate, so they're even more nervous by that. So we try to make it easy on them. The first assignment is, in 3 or 4 minutes, teach us anything. So one girl got up and she said, well, I'm taking tap dancing lessons, so I'm going to teach you the first 3 steps all tap dancers use. And so the next time you see a performance, you can pick it out. That was pretty interesting. One of the boys got up and said, well, I'm going to teach you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in 3 minutes. Fine, you know, typical boy. One of the girls got up and she said, well, I'm Cuban, so I'm bilingual, and today I'm going to teach you Spanish. And everybody said, oh, okay. She said, but I'm not going to teach you the alphabet, not going to teach you numbers, I'm not going to teach you how to get to the library. She said, instead, I'm going to teach you how to break up with your Spanish-speaking foreign exchange boyfriend. Yeah. So she said, what's the first thing you say when you're going to break up with your boyfriend? All the girls in class, unrehearsed, said, we have to talk. She said, correct. Necesitamos hablar. She writes that on the board. The boys, of course, are looking around kind of like, the boys here are looking around like, was that a secret handshake? How do they know the answer to that question, you know? She said, what's the second thing you say when you're going to break up with your boyfriend? One of the girls over in the corner said, it's not you, it's me. She said, correct. Non eres tú. She writes that on. She goes through about 6 standard responses that apparently all of you women know and use on us. She gets to the last thing and she said, and the last thing you say? One of the girls over there said, lose my phone number forever. She said, right. Now here's how you say it if you want to be nice. Here's how you say it if you want to be really mean. It's really interesting. So I went up to her afterwards. I said, Louisa, how did you come up with such a creative approach to doing a 3 or 4 minute presentation? She said, you think that was creative? I said, oh my goodness. I said, they loved it. I said, you did something that all speakers yearn for, which is connection with the audience, quickly. She said, you know, it's funny. My parents have been telling me I'm creative since day one. She said, but I think all I do is think about one extra thing. She said, I was coming down in the L today, which is our subway, and she said, I'm thinking, how am I going to teach Spanish? She said, I knew I was going to teach Spanish, I just didn't know what the approach was. She said, then it hit me. What do we all have in common? She said, we break up with each other all the time. So she said, that's when I got this one extra thing. In physician executive leadership, that one extra thing is sometimes the magic that creates connection. If you've ever worked for somebody, if you've ever worked for a boss when you were younger or now, they can be smart, and they can be political, and they can do all the stuff they need to do, but if they don't have a connection with the people they're working with, especially the people who don't have to listen to them. Do you have any people that don't really have to listen to you? You just have to use influence to work your magic. And when you do this one extra thing, very, very big things happen. So what we're after is, what is it that seems to be some of the magic that people use in physician executive leadership? We can know a lot of stuff, but if the connection doesn't happen, a lot of our efforts will fall flat. I was with a bunch of endocrinologists in San Antonio. Do any of you know an endocrinologist? You know? You know, so pretty heavy on the data stuff. So I'm with about 40 endocrinologists, and I'm the only non-endo doc there. And they were talking about something like the endocannabinoid system or something crazy like that. And it was a dark room, of course. You know, they turned all the lights out so you could see the PowerPoint, and everybody's just very quiet. Now, this fellow, the fellow who's presenting before me was a doctor. He's an endocrinologist, a very nice guy. But I mean, this was like the most boring presentation I've ever seen in my life. You know, endodocs can fit about 300 words on a slide, including graphs with yellow lines and white lines and all that sort of stuff. It was kind of amazing. So I was going a little crazy. I must have hyperactivity or something going on. So I leaned over to this one, and all the doctors are just like this, looking at the screen. I leaned over to one doctor. I said, how is this for you? He said, well, I'm a physician. I've been trained to appear interested. Yeah. And you know darn well that sometimes that's what happens when you're leading teams of your docs. Sometimes they're looking at you like, and you know nothing is going on up here, you know, and they're saying to themselves, when am I getting out of here, right? So what I'd like you to keep in mind today is, how is it that connection is really a vital piece? What is it that's really going to make a big difference in terms of making sure we've got a connection? Okay. Did you ever see this quote? Let's see, by Winston Churchill. Does that ring a bell for anybody? You know? Yeah. And so a lot of times we're demanded to do things that we weren't trained for, huh? And when we were not trained that way, we don't know. Because a lot of, I don't know, I don't think they always, I don't know, did they teach any of this stuff to you in medical school? You know, teach anything about leadership? Did they even have physician executives when you're in medical school? So here's a trick question. It's a trick question. 3 frogs are sitting on a log. One decides to jump. How many are left on the log? This is when we need Jeopardy music, you know, do-do-do. So 3 frogs are sitting on a log. One decides to jump. How many are left on the log?
3.
Why 3? Just decided to jump. Didn't actually jump. Have any of you been to a lot of meetings lately where people decided a lot of stuff, but nothing actually happened as a result? You know? Yeah. So the other piece is, how is it that we can get the jumping? Jumping is a contagious activity. So when I jump, when somebody else jumps, people go, whoa, something actually happened. You know? And leading is helping people jump. But it's not telling them to jump. It's maybe jumping first. It's maybe making sure some action happens as a result of our meetings. It's checking out with them to make sure that they understood what we understood. You know, if any of you have been married, or you have a maiden squeeze, or any of that, or you used to be married, or any of that stuff, you know that you can say something very simple, and the other person does not always get it, right? In fact, they get something completely different. And that happens at work on many occasions, which always surprises us later, and we say, well, I thought we decided. So the goal is, how is it that we can connect for greater efficiency with one another? Now this is a generalization, but physicians get trained in this kind of stuff. And this is the kind of stuff they're interested in. You know, stuff like safety and risk and all that sort of thing. Executives, though, think of the exact same thing in a slightly different way. Now they're thinking about the meaning, the story, possibility, profitability. And then our business development folks, or our sales folks, they think of it in a completely different way. I was working with a group of pharmacists in the pharmaceutical business, and they're all MDs, PhDs, and PharmDs. And so they're on the medical side of the business. And we were having our own little meeting, about this many people, at a hotel. And right next door, the same company was having their sales rally for the salespeople that come and visit all of you in your offices. Well, they're a whole different breed altogether, you know, as you know. So, somehow or other, my boss said, let's all go to the sales rally for an hour because they've got a pretty good speaker. And we're not doing anything anyway. Everybody went, well, okay, will we catch anything, you know, from them? So we go over, and there's about 100 salespeople in the room, and then there's about 30 of us. My people, all our people are sitting down, and somebody gets on stage, and they start going, hoo, 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 rah, and they start doing the rah, rah sort of stuff. And everybody, all the salespeople are leaping out of their seats like it's some kind of a church thing going on, you know. And all our people are there like, I am so embarrassed by this. They were talking about the exact same topics, but they were coming at it from completely different experiences. And so when you're an executive, we have to figure out how to talk to all these people. Because you do have to talk about the folks on the business development side, don't you? You have to talk about people who have only been an executive for their entire life and are not trained in medicine at all. And then we've got plenty of folks who are your peers, and all of a sudden you got promoted to lead your peers, which is sometimes an unenviable position, right? Because they look at you and say, wait a minute, you were one of us before, you know? And overnight, you went from a we and an us to a them and the they, you know, overnight. So how do we do that? The most important thing, I think, from these kinds of conferences is to take your own notes, not about what the speaker said, but take your notes about what you're going to do. You know, I go to a convention every year of speakers, and it's about 1,500 people, and we spend 5 days together. It's kind of like this conference. Everybody's loving and hugging each other, and you know, all that stuff. So this is the wildest medical conference I've ever been to. Blows my mind. So we're at this conference, and I'm there with my co-author Cindy, and we're coming back on the airplane. And I usually take about 20 pages of written notes at this conference. It's 5 days. It's great stuff. I even leave the left-hand margin open for the jokes. I don't know if you do that too. You never know when they'll come in handy. And I lovingly take my notes. And when I get home, I put them in a file folder. And on the tab, I write, "Never to see the light of day again." You do that too. Yeah. And then I take them and I put them in a banker's box. That's what banker's boxes are for. And that goes in the basement. Now, I have all of them. They're in chronological order from 1981 till just last week. And if you ever wanted to see these notes, if I ever wanted to see these notes again, they're in my basement. So I'm coming back on the trip, and I'm sitting next to Cindy and a bunch of my other little speaker buddies, and everybody's lovingly going through their 20 pages of notes. Cindy, on the other hand, is writing about 10 declarative sentences on a blank piece of paper with her notes. And I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm writing down what I'm going to do this year as a result of these notes." And I thought, what a concept, you know. So the flight attendant comes down the aisle like they always do, and they say, "We're going to pick up the trash and newspapers and stuff." So I hand her my USA Today, you know. Cindy hands her her 20 pages of notes that she just took from the convention. I almost went, "No!" I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm never going to use those notes again." She said, "No, what happens if I take those notes home?" I said, "No, what?" She said, "I'm probably going to file them in the basement." I thought, how stupid is that, you know? She said, "But I know that I can do these 10 things." And I thought, oh, wow, what a great learning. Simple, but a great learning, see? Because I've got my notes. She's got stuff she's actually going to do. Okay, so here's 3 ideas for today. The first one is the meaning of value. Value used to mean what I've got for you. Value really means, can you help me solve my problem? So when people are talking value, don't think about it as what I've got and I can give to you. Think of it as, how can I help them solve their problem? Because when I can help them solve their problem, that's of high value. If I meet you in the grocery store in aisle 13D and I say, "Hi, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? How is the kids? Oh, soccer, blah, blah, blah," and you go back and forth, that's okay. It's a social conversation. Nothing wrong with it. It's not what we consider high value. High value is if you know endo doc and I need it, all of a sudden that's high value because you're helping me solve a problem. People want leaders who can help them solve problems. Not solve problems for them, but can help them solve problems. Sometimes through questioning, sometimes through paraphrasing, sometimes through connecting the dots, sometimes sharing their experiences. Second concept is called the product of the product. This is from Nito Cobain, who's president of High Point University in North Carolina. Think about it this way. When I send a Federal Express package from my home in Chicago to, let's say, San Diego, apparently it goes to Memphis overnight. They switch planes and then it flies off to San Diego. Apparently if I send a package from my home 35 miles outside Chicago to downtown Chicago, they still send it to Memphis overnight. My suggestion is put it in a taxi cab and drive it there. But that's their switching station. Everything goes through Memphis. I never worry whether the plane is going to make it. I never worry about rain or snow or hail or any of that sort of stuff. Because every time I hand it to the driver, it's there by 10:30 the next morning in some magical way. The product is the package getting delivered. The product of the product is my peace of mind that the package got delivered. And to me, that's worth $19.95. Really, $19.95 pays for peace of mind. The delivery is free. Now, if I go to the post office, I know they do a pretty good job, but I don't have the same confidence when I hand it to the post office that it'll be there absolutely no matter what overnight. So the product of the product happens inside of me. Value is happening inside of the other person. Okay? And the last thing is, we talked about this, connection. Connection is more important than communication. When you and I write emails, we think about communicating. What we probably ought to be thinking about is connecting. How do I connect with this particular person in this email? How do I keep it nice and short, especially if a man is going to be reading it? Because they tend to skim, right? Yeah, and they don't read every word. So you can labor and labor over this long email, and they're not going to do that. What they're going to do is they're going to ask two questions that we all ask when we get an email. What is this, and what does it have to do with me? And if I can answer that in the first couple of lines, I'm more likely to read the email. If I can't answer that in the first couple of lines, then I'm either going to delete it, I'm going to save it, which is dangerous, or worse, I'm going to send it to you. So in either case, you don't accomplish your goal. They ask, sometimes they even say that if you're going to send an email to somebody and you want them to do 5 things, you should really send 5 emails. Not one email with 5 things. Because they'll do the first couple and all of a sudden they get to this one and they go, oh, that's going to take too much time. I'll just save it for a while. Well, meanwhile, you're not getting your answer to the first 3 things. Some people even, I've been doing this with doctors. I don't know if this would work with you guys, but I tell them what, in the subject line, I say exactly what I want them to do, and then I say time required 6 minutes, 4 minutes, 2 minutes. Because what I want to do is attract that attention of theirs to say, okay, I'll just do it now. So connection is more important than communication. So product of the product. One of our friends, Mike and I, runs one-page websites. These are websites that are only devoted to one thing. One of them is called weddingtoasts.com. Have any of you ever had to give a wedding toast? Yeah, okay. This is not easy because you're supposed to be funny. You're not supposed to embarrass the mother of the bride, and you've been drinking, right? Yeah. So the wedding toast is the product. The product of the product is everybody coming up to you afterwards saying, you were terrific. See? So he also has one called eulogies.com. Now what he does on these websites is he sells a book for 20 bucks on how to give a great wedding toast. He's got one on how to give a great eulogy. Have you ever given a eulogy? Any of you, somebody did? Well, you know, the product is the speech. The product of the product is everybody coming up to you afterwards saying, you captured Frank beautifully. It's too bad that he's dead. He couldn't hear this, you know. So actually, speaking of that, we had a professor at Loyola who had terminal cancer. I don't know if this is a new trend or whatever. She's got terminal cancer. She knows she's going to die in a few weeks. She called everybody together and had a party. This was like the ultimate Irish wake. She was attending her own wake. It was the greatest thing in the world. And she was really sick, so they Skyped her in on a bunch of... And then afterwards, everybody got to go up to the computer and say goodbye to her. Yeah, it was wonderful. She was dead in 2 weeks, but it was the nicest. And I thought to myself, we probably ought to have wakes earlier, you know. But anyway, so he sells these. Yeah, he sells these books that then help people get good. But the product of the product is not the book. Product of the product is the effect that the speech has. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. Starbucks. Yeah, we have a Starbucks near the university where I teach, and we have. Do any of you have kids in college or have done that thing? Yeah. Remember Parents' Day in freshman year? They invite Parents' Weekend. Actually, you really only go once because it was such a horrible experience. So mostly for the kid. So. But you haven't seen your baby for 8 or 9 weeks, so you go there and you've got money and you've got a care package and all that sort of cookies and all that stuff. And then the university's job is to keep you separate from the kids for most of the activities. So the Starbucks near the university where I teach, they have a giant sign. It's about as big as one of these flip charts, and it says all the benefits of Parents' Weekend without the parents. Sign up for your Starbucks card now and have it automatically recharge every month to your parents' credit card. You know. This is genius, see, because the parent thinks to themselves, you know, this is good. I'll get rid of some of the guilt of what I've done to them for their whole life, see. So to the kid, it's free food. To Starbucks, it's money. It has nothing to do with it's not the card. It's the effect of the card. And then we have this in Chicago. I don't know if you have one of these where you live.
Yes.
Yeah, the American Girl Store. Have any of you been there? The American Girl Store? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You have that expression on your face like you've been there. Yeah. So, you can come in and sit down while I'm talking. Don't worry. So, the American Girl Store, this is where you buy dolls that are about this big. They're not cheap, correct? And you can get them to look like your daughter. So, we've got little girls up and down Michigan Avenue that are walking around with these dolls. Now, they're not inexpensive. To walk in and out of the American Girl Store, for a mom, it's about $285. For a dad, it's about $465. And for a grandmother, it's, hey, whatever it costs, you know. So I park in the discount parking garage. where they also have the discount parking for the university and for the American Girl store. And it's on the 8th floor, and it's a very small elevator, and it only fits 4 people. So one day I get on the elevator, and there's a little girl and her dolly, and they are dressed the same. And her 37-year-old mommy, and she too was dressed the same. Yeah. This was very creepy. So we had to go down 8 floors. Now what they're going to do is they're going to the American Girl store over on Chicago Avenue, and they're going to go to the American Girl store beauty salon to get the doll's hair done. Yeah. Now they have a new thing where they go and get the doll's ear pierced at regular rates, and I don't think they swab it with alcohol first either. So, and then they go shopping and they buy clothes and they do all that sort of stuff. Then they go upstairs to have tea with their mommy. Now, what they noticed was the moms, the little girl is talking to the doll's talking to the girl, but the moms were all staring straight ahead like, I can't believe what I just did, how much money I just spent. And so they were a little concerned about that, so they thought, how can we respond to mom's dilemma of not knowing kind of what to talk to the kid about during this? So they came up with a great idea. This is true American culture at its best. They have laminated cards that fit in the palm of your hand that have starter questions on them to help you talk to your daughter, right? Yeah. And you have to buy the cards. So, so here's mom. She palms the card. The kid doesn't see the card. She says, so who's your favorite friend at school? Who's your favorite doll? See, we're getting there. What do you think of your father? You know, so, yeah. So in doing that, all of a sudden, so the product is the card? The product, well, you tell me, what's the product of a mom or a dad taking their daughter to the American Girl store? What do you think is that? Connectivity, connecting with the kid, yeah? It's almost a Disney kind of thing. How many of you have been to Disney more than once? How many have been there more than 5 times? Oh, wow. We have some addicts here. Any more than 8 or 10 times? Whoa, look at this. Oh my, yeah. Last night, yeah. Yeah, that's so when you walk into Disney, if you remember, what you do is you go to the ticket booth, you give them your wallet, you say, I'll be back next week to pick it up, right? And it makes no difference, any of that stuff. And so what's happening at Walt Disney's goal was, I want to build a place where people will come and they'll have a good time. Then they go home and they'll tell their neighbors what a good time they had. The neighbors will say, that's cool, and they went and had a good time. Here's the genius. The neighbors will come back and tell the original people what a good time they had. The original people say, dang, let's do that again. And they go again. Now then they advertised for a while, you know, enjoy Disney. They had a middle-aged couple by themselves, and they said, enjoy Disney for the first time by yourselves, you know, without kids. And now they've got a grandfather and a granddaughter. And are any of you grandparents? Yeah? Okay. Is it true that being a grandparent is better than being a parent? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Sounded pretty definitive on that one. Yeah. Yeah. So, and so that's the ultimate sort of circular experience, see, of customer service. So the exact same thing happens at the American Girl store. You know, the kids, and when you see these little girls on Michigan Avenue holding these dolls, it's like they've got gold. The parents, their expression is a little different. It's kind of like yours, you know, of, you know, what did I just do? You know, what did I just participate in here? See, now, if you think about value from the perspective of the value interpreter, them, not what we think is value, it completely changes the whole way you look at an interaction. Because if you look at an interaction from the standpoint of how are they interpreting the value, what's important to them, everything changes. If I look at it from the value of, you guys are going to love what I got, and I've got this great stuff, so you come to me, that's a different kind of leadership. That's not really very useful. If you think about product of the product with every one of your meetings, what is it people are walking out with? So the product of this workshop is, you know, 3 hours. Walking out, the product of the product is what you say to somebody when they say, how was it? You know, and you say, it transformed my life. You know, yeah. I don't think that's funny at all. I think that's very serious. And when you have communication, that's one thing. When you got connection, that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. Dr. Dreikers, a famous psychiatrist from Chicago, used to say, don't fight, don't give in. And he was talking about with kids, you know, because I don't know if you have any 5 or 6-year-olds who say, come on, let's do a few rounds, you know. Or they go absolutely berserk when your shopping cart is just about full. They decide to go, ugh, and that's what Twinkies are for, actually. You know, here, eat this. You know. So, but what Dreikers used to say, you do, and you could probably apply this to people too. He would say, "Oh, don't want to shop today? Okay, let's go home." And he picks the kid up, leaves the cart there. It's good for the economy because they have to hire somebody to put all the stuff back, right? And the kids start screaming, "No, we'll try it tomorrow." See, as soon as you say that to a kid, the kid he said, you know. And then we had to do this once or twice with our kids. All of a sudden, they're like model children in the grocery store. But when they know they can play with you, you know, and I think that's also true of some physicians. See, when they know they can play with you, Dr. Evil does show up at your meetings, right? Yeah, and no, nothing personal. But you know, yeah. But you know, when that happens, if you're not careful, you want to fight them. You know, you get a little blast of something in your body. That's not a good thing. You want to be curious. You want to thank them. Say thank you for that comment. Oh, that's interesting. How many of you feel? You know, what do the rest of you feel? I'd especially like to see those of you that have a different point of view. You know, that's when you get some of your allies. If they say something really odd and weird, you know, and you just don't want to deal with it, say, "Thank you very much, doctor. If it's okay, let me take that down word for word and put it in the parking lot. And then we can talk about that a little later." And you walk up to here and you write "parking lot" on your flip chart. The flip chart is your friend. Okay? Then you write almost word for word what the doc said. Say, "Is that right, doc?" They'll say, yeah, that's right." And then you say thanks. Now, on another subject, go on. Now, parking lot to that doctor means we're going to go back to that. Parking lot to you means vast graveyard of stupid ideas that will never be revisited again. But you have to get it out of them, or they will keep it inside. It'll fester. It'll metastasize. Am I using that right? Yeah. And then they're really going to be mad at you. See, have you ever tried to keep a beach ball underwater? It doesn't weigh much, but it's very difficult to keep it submerged. You put a lot of energy into it. And if you make me gulp down my idea again, damn it, I'm going to do something about that. See, and then I'm going to find another way to vent. But if I can get it up and out, and you've validated me and you've thanked me for it, and you've copied it word for word, it's out. See? Now I can go on to do something else. So managing that kind of a person is not terribly difficult, but you can't in any way disrespect them or insult them, even if you just really want them out of your life completely, especially in public. Remember the 7th grade kid in class who was the jerk in your class? When he would act up and the teacher would fight with him, you knew the kid was a jerk, but you were rooting for the kid. You know, you weren't rooting for the teacher. You were waiting to see, I wonder what she's going to do with this one, you know. You weren't lending a lot of support by saying, Billy, shut up, you know. Instead, you were quiet because you knew he would get you on the playground, you know. So, yeah. Anybody else? How's that like something or someone?